looks good, feels great.
Hospital Radio.
Yes, good evening. Welcome to another edition of The World of Sport. And how does it all work? Well, we've got 5 questions all about sport that's happening this week. And our teams in the studio need to answer 5 questions, all multiple choice A, B or C. And at the end of the quiz, hopefully somebody will win and be this week's champion. But what I need to do first, before we get into the questions, is tell the team all about the sport that is happening this week. And it's certainly not a sport you have seen on television, because happening between the 4th and the 14th of December is the World Weightlifting Championships. So you're going to hear 5 questions that all have something to do with the World Weightlifting Championships, A, B or C. Are you ready for the quiz?
Yes, we are.
So we got 5 questions all about the World Weightlifting Championships. And off we go. And where else to start but at question one, all about the World Weightlifting Championships. And just to let you know as well, this isn't actually going to be a question, but it's held annually. So you know that's not going to be one of the questions. Starting on the 4th, finishing on the 14th of December. Now I can tell you last year's event, now that we know it's annual, last year's event in 2023 was held in Saudi Arabia. But where is this year's event being held? Is it A, Houston, USA? Is it B, Myanmar in Bahrain? Or is it C, Ningbo, China? A, B or C? I'll just recap. Houston, USA was A, Myanmar, Bahrain was B, and Ningbo, China was C. One of those locations is hosting this year's World Weightlifting Championships, but which one is it? So you should have one answer. If we move on to question 2, and question 2, nice and straightforward. What year was the first World Weightlifting Championship held? So when did it start? And you've got 3 years here. One of them is correct. So you've got, was it A, in 1950? Was it B, in 1969? Or is it C, 1891? So was it A, 1950, B, 1969, or C, 1891? What year was the first World Weightlifting Championship held? And on to question 3 we go. And this is question 3. Okay, so in the history of the championship, which country has won the most gold medals across all time, all championships? They have a medal table, but which country is at the top? So again, you've got 3 choices. Is it A, the United States? Is it B, China? Or is it C, good old Great Britain? So one of those countries is at the top of the World Weightlifting Championships medal table, but which one is it? A, the United States, B, China, or C, Great Britain? Right, let's move on to question 4 now. Number 4, the event is organised by the IWF. I think you know what the question's going to be. What does IWF stand for? Is it French? Is it Fédération Internationale Haltérophile? Is it B, the International Weightlifting Federation? Or is it C, the Federation of International Weightlifting? So the event's organised by the IWF. What does IWF stand for? Is it Fédération Internationale Haltérophile? Is it International Weightlifting Federation? Or is it the Federation of International Weightlifting? One of those is correct. And it's up to the team in the studio and yourselves playing on the wards as well to figure out which one. As we cruise now into question 5, and the final question on this week's World of Sport is... The World Weightlifting Championships used to be a men's-only event, but what year were women first allowed to compete in the World Weightlifting Championships? Now, you've got to choose 3 years here, okay? Were they first allowed to compete in 1967, which is A? Was it in fact 1977? B, they were first allowed to compete. Or was it C, 1987? So in one of these years, women were first allowed to compete in the World Weightlifting Championship. Was it A, 1967, B, 1977, or C, 1987? Now in the studio, you should now have 5 answers. You should also have 5 answers on the board. Have we got 5 answers?
We have. Well, I have anyway.
Yep. And I'll say once again, have we confidently got 5 answers?
Yes.
Hospital Radio.
You should have 5 answers like the 2 contestants in the studio this evening. Let's find out who is the winner of this week's World of Sport. So it all boils down to 5 questions all about the World Weightlifting Championships. But who is this week's champion? Let's find out, shall we, as we go to question 1. So question 1 was, in 2023, when the event was last held, it was held in Saudi Arabia, but where is this year's event being held? Now you had a choice of A, B or C. Was it A, Houston, USA? Was it B, Bahrain? Or was it C, Ningbo, China? I will start with, she hasn't been down for a while, so I'll start with Karen this evening. A, B or C?
I went with C.
You went with Ningbo, China. What about Brian?
A.
You think it's Houston, USA? That's quite interesting, actually, because it's B. It is. It's Manama, Bahrain. That's where this year's event is being held. So well done if you got that on the wards. Nil point, as they say in the studio, as we move on to question 2. And what was question 2? Well, I'll remind you. What year was the first weightlifting world championship held? When did it all start? It originally started in the men's division. We'll find out when the women can compete a little bit later on, but it all started with the gents. But what year did it start? Was it A, 1950? Was it B, 1969? Or was it C, 1891? Brian, we'll start with you now.
B.
You think it was 1969. What about Karen?
I went for B as well.
You also thought it was 1969. Congratulations, you're both wrong, because the correct answer was C. It first started in 1891.
Wow, I didn't think it'd
all
be
those
that
years
long.
ago. Yeah, it was in London, obviously in the UK. 1969 was Warsaw, Poland, and 1950 it was held in Paris. So there you go. It was first held in 1891. And if you got that, give yourself 1 point. So still no points scored in the studio. Will we get 1 point on the board as we go to question 3? Let's find out. Okay, question 3 was, in the history of the championship, which country has won the most gold medals? So since it started back in 1891, they have a medal table for every year the championship's taken place, but one country takes pride of place at the top of the medal table with the most gold medals. But which country is it? Is it A, the United States? Is it B, China? Or is it C, Great Britain? Karen?
I went with B.
You think it's B, China. What about Brian?
A.
You went with the United States. Karen gets a point because the correct answer was B, China. And I've got some figures for you here. China at the top of the medal table. They've won 197 gold medals since the event started in 1891. In second place there is the US. They've won 42 gold medals. And then finally, Great Britain. We've won 5.
Ooh.
Just 5 gold medals in the World Weightlifting Championship. So if you got that on the wards, give yourself a point. Karen's in the lead as we go now into question 4. Now the question question 4 was, the event is organised by the IWF. And this one sometimes catches people out. But what does IWF stand for? So is it A, is it a French organisation, Fédération Internationale Haltérophile, which stands for weightlifting? Is it B, the International Weightlifting Federation? Or is it C, the Federation of International Weightlifting? Brian?
B.
You've gone with the International Weightlifting Federation. What about Karen?
I went with B as well because it sounded like it was, too obvious, really.
You went with B because it was obvious, and you were correct. It is in fact B. I tried to fool you with those two by putting a French one in there, but it didn't work. Yeah, it means the International Weightlifting Federation. Oddly enough, Fédération Internationale How to Feel is French for International Weightlifting Federation. I did Google Translate that. I didn't just make that up. That is actually the translation for it, but that's not what it's called. Right, okay. Question 5. The World Weightlifting Championship used to be a men's-only event, but what year were women first allowed to compete in the championship? Now, you've got a choice of 3 answers here. It'll be interesting to see who gets this one, because we could be drawing or winning at this point. Was it A, 1967? Was it B, 1977? Or was it C, 1987? And we'll quite appropriately start with Karen.
Well, I went with C.
You think it was 1987, but what did Brian think?
Same. C.
Any particular reason?
Because I thought women would have started later.
You're both absolutely right. It was first introduced for women in 1987, and they had a few women's championships, and then it became a mixed championship. So the men had a few years off whilst they did the women's, and now everybody takes part, and it's a mixed championship. So you should have now a mark out of 5. I've got a sneaking suspicion we've got a repeat result again, but to add your scores up on the wards, and what we'll do is we will now go to the guys in the studio and see what the scores on the doors are. So first we will start with Karen.
Well, I got 3 out of 5.
You got 3 out of 5, and Brian?
2.
2, which means Karen once again is the winner of this week's World of Sport, all about the World Weightlifting Championship. Karen, congratulations. You are this week's champion.
Requests and dedications on Hospital Radio.
This is your free 24-hour radio station. Radio Heartbeats.
Playing the music you love.
Hospital Radio.